Got the dang music. What's up, everybody? I'm filming on my phone, which is, by the way, usually how I film on an iPhone, now 17 Pro Max. But I almost was unable to film this, and this is why I haven't done any content today, because my phone did this. God, just like that on a walk yesterday, no, a couple days ago. And I was like trying to film, I was on the north shore of Pittsburgh and trying to film the city and then film me doing this walk. And I fucking dropped my phone and it cracked. Dude, my previous phone, the 16, whatever it was, I dropped it like 50 times. Never cracked. I dropped this new phone, the 17 Pro Max, one time. I just gotten it like 2 weeks ago. Cracked. So I swapped the screen. Thankfully, I got the protection plan. So through a Shurion and U-Brake I fixed, we swapped it out. And now we're back in action. We're back in action, otherwise known as Baction. Let's talk about a few things before we get to questions. Hope you guys are great. Happy Thursday. And hope you're enjoying the summer. One misconception I want to clear up about estrogen and libido so that folks truly understand what is happening and what the benefit can be if your libido is bad on TRT and simultaneously you've got pretty elevated estradiol. People think that estrogen is what drives our libido on TRT. And although estrogen influences libido in so far as it being in the right range for your body, given that particular androgen threshold, it only basically allows you to have libido if it isn't substantially inhibited, the estradiol, above which you usually have some libido, but there is the classic young man's aggressive, like, you know, excuse my French, I'm going to sound a little crass for a second, I want to fuck everything I see libido. You don't really get that as estrogen scales upward, but you can get it on TRT if the androgen threshold crosses a certain level, and if, and only if I should say, the estrogen is in the spot for your body where it can actually create that. See, what your body tries to do in response to hormone ratios is go, okay, let me see what I'm working with here. I'm going to create the best possible libido and erectile state that I can with these ratios. And in some cases, if the ratios are really wrong, the state it's going to create is ED with a lackluster libido. You know, you have to listen to your body. When you don't have libido on TRT, it's telling you, based on what I have here, I cannot create libido. Unless you sleep like absolute shit every night, meaning 2 to 4 hours, and that's driving your libido loss, it's your hormones. And you need to get the ratios in the right place so that you can have libido. Now, let's explain, kind of in line with the piece of content that I did just a couple days ago, what actually happens when you have high androgens. You've got a high dose of test, 200 plus or so. And the estrogen is over the range your body needs it to be for you to have great libido and erectile function. And you carefully dose either anastrozole, aromasin, Primo, or Masteron in a way which really, really jives with your body. You're able to achieve the right balance of high androgens and estradiol, which is still in range, maybe even over range still. You know, it's not often that when taking AIs, we aim to take the estradiol sub 20 picograms per milliliter. We really want it, depending on the androgen load, between 25 and 45 in that case. But the craziest things happen in those cases. The kind of libido where, again, and I'm going to be a little crass, you're sitting in your car outside of the store, or you're sitting at the gym or whatever, and you see women in front of you, and you just can't stop thinking vulgar fucking shit about it. That kind of libido comes back, which may be confusing to people because people think that estrogen is like what drives our male libido. It only allows us to have it if we don't crush it. That's pretty much it. Men get libido loss. You've heard Derek say this, who we trust. You've heard a lot of other folks say it. When the estrogen gets too high, the libido starts reducing. How is that even possible if estrogen is necessary for a libido? Well, it probably takes place via inhibition of dopamine firing in the brain, but I'm sure there are other mechanisms that we don't quite understand. You get that down in the right place while you've still got high levels of androgens and particularly DHT. The libido you had when you were very young that a lot of people on TRT unfortunately have disconnected from and don't have and think they'll never get again can come back. Again, not a blanket statement, just something for folks to think about. Estrogen is not the driver of libido on TRT. Estrogen is somewhat the governor, and that if you inhibit aromatase too much, you start inhibiting that conversion in the brain. And your libido is dependent on that estrogen conversion in the brain to some extent, right? It's a multifaceted picture. It obviously isn't just estradiol in isolation. That's not how real physiology works. So I just wanted to clear that up for people. I have in my day, I'm probably getting close at 250 milligrams a week now. I've been running that for, 2 months and a week or something. And I haven't needed an AI at this point, but I feel like I'm getting close. Because the libido's downturning a little bit. EQ's still good, but I can tell that there's something a little bit off there. So we're probably going to be running a 0.25 of an anastrozole, and we'll let that roll for about 14 days or so, 10 to 14 days, and probably have to dose it again. But historically, when I've been on sports TRT and I was able to get the estrogen in the right range at that point, I mean, holy fuck, right? Especially when libido had started to go down a little bit, erection quality was starting to go down. The difference is astronomical. I just want to clear it up for people. Let's get to questions, man. Let's start with 8-6. What would be some reasons you wouldn't employ the use of Proviron? People are sensitive to hair loss. Would be one of the only reasons. Yeah, I mean, Proviron is like rocket fuel for torching your hair. This is just true, and it's unfortunate. It's a wonderfully useful drug, and it feels very good to take Proviron. A lot of us have detailed our experiences publicly with the use of Proviron and specifically how it increases the feeling of masculinity. It's like, if there is a drug, an androgen that can produce the closest feeling to what we think about how men should feel, just how a man's man should feel, like maybe fucking your dad's dad when he was in his prime. That's what Proviron is like. At the same time, Proviron inhibits aromatase, so it can, to a mild extent, lower estrogen and balance out those ratios. And this is one of the reasons that it takes people from erectile failure and libido failure into great erectile function and great libido. It's methylated DHT, so the way that it interacts with the androgen receptors is very similar to DHT. The way that it interacts with SHBG is different than DHT. It actually has a higher binding affinity than DHT to the sex hormone binding globulin. So it is very powerful at increasing free test. So a lot of benefits to taking it, but it can torch your hair. It torches mine. I will have noticeable spots in the top of my head when taking it, and my hair will thin rather quickly when taking it. So I've got to run it for a month and a half, enjoy the benefits, and then cycle off of it so my hair can recover. So those would be the reasons right there. It is not unhealthy, deleterious by any stretch. It's one of the safest androgens that we can be taking. It's been extensively studied, and it's a very powerful drug. Warren Prater says, when E2 is too high at 100% messes me up. I know the group says otherwise on Facebook, and I find a plethora of good info in that group, so I never speak about it on there. Yeah, this is the whole problem, with the Keith Nichols and the, all the rest of those folks, is that this is what I remember. That group was very prominent about 3 years ago, when I found it necessary to go on the web and ensure that people knew that there was this whole other side to it, i.e. controlling estrogen, and therefore regaining your sexual function back on tier 2, which is what we all want. And I don't know if they still have this problem, but the problem that I heard from people, and this is not my attempt to fucking disparage them. They can exist on the internet and do whatever it is they want, and people can choose to either listen to them and get the results they get, or listen to folks like me and get the results that we'll get. But the major problem is that I heard from folks is they would just censor people's speech on the matter. If you said, hey, dude, I took an AI and my libido came right back, or I'd lowered my estrogen somehow and libido came right back. I really think I should at least be looking at my estradiol. I think this is problematic. You get banned from the group, right? You get banned from the group. So it's unfortunate we have this kind of stuff here where you got Warren over here who can't say anything about this in the group. But of course it messes with you. Let me just tell you guys a story, and I made this clear on a video the other day, but this is a really important point. If you're curious about estradiol, or I should say this, if you think you're an expert on estradiol and you contend that estrogen above a certain range in relation to androgens for men that are on TRT is not problematic, and these issues are attributable to other things going on in that person's individual physiology, you should ask yourself the question, if you have had the unfortunate experience of dealing with a woman that is trying to dial in HRT, estradiol patches, or estrogen cream in rarer cases, but mostly they're given patches, and what that was like. Because I have fucking firsthand personal experience with that, with women trying to dial in HRT. And I can tell you this, a woman where the female body is presumably much more receptive to estradiol, like they have such high levels of it at various times, trying to dial in on HRT, if the estradiol dose for them, for women, is too high in their attempt to dial in, the psychological and psychiatric negative side effects are profoundly disturbing. Gloominess, depression, suicidal ideation in extreme cases. This is stuff that I've fucking personally witnessed. What else was going on? Yeah, just an absolute negative outlook on life. The inability to see things positive, even though there are positive things happening, in this particular woman's life. Dude, it's a fucking disaster. It's a fucking disaster. So if women in their much more receptivity, if you will, because their bodies are much more accustomed to high levels of estradiol and constant estradiol, if they take too much estradiol and they have side effects, what makes you think we won't? We're not in any way, shape, or form built like them in relation to our tolerance to estradiol. This is the truth of the matter. My remark about how guys will have recognized that they had previously had symptoms that they didn't recognize were there, or that they didn't recognize were elevated estrogen, when they lower it into a much more reasonable spot for their physiology without tanking it, without being unhealthy, and any of those stuff, other things, they go, oh, fuck, I am happy now. I am optimistic now. I feel great. My energy is better. I feel much more masculine. And all these things I didn't really realize were a deficiency when I was up there in the elevated estrogen, but wow, I feel substantially different and much better now. This kind of stuff that happens, man. This kind of stuff that happens, dude. It happens all the time. It's all over the forums too. So, I don't really know why people don't think that this is a thing. In what cases would you find using DHT derivative better than an AI? If a person wants to get the additional benefits of said DHT derivatives like primobolan or masteron, like anabolism and physique sculpting, I think that that's probably the best use case for using DHT derivatives over AIs. At the same time, it is likely that primobolan specifically probably better on your lipids than an aromatase inhibitor. Now, of course, there are different types of aromatase inhibitors, and aromasin is better on your lipids than anastrozole, generally speaking. And so we think. But that might be one of the reasons. I think it's predominantly about the benefits, the additional benefits that DHT derivatives offer over aromatase inhibitors. You're not going to get additional anabolism by using an aromatase inhibitor. But, if you've got a DHT derived compound that metabolizes differently, i.e. it sticks around longer and is profoundly more facilitative of muscle protein synthesis, then that is a benefit over using an AI. I also think that some people, for fear of the use of aromatase inhibitors for potential health problems, would rather use primobolan or masteron for that. Now, again, as I've discussed recently, a lot of that fear comes from studies and women taking 32x more than we would take for TRT. So, and having bone mineral density loss at small percentages. That one study, I hope everyone knows what I'm talking about if you're worth your weight in salt in this industry. But that's not you on TRT. It's very different. It's very different. Other than that, yeah, that's the primary case. Warren Prater says, also going to switch to every 3.5 days instead of 3 times a week. I listened to you speak on trial for now. It's actually good. It made a lot of sense to me. Peak a little high, then come down some. Yeah, I mean, this is the only way for most of the people that I have seen do these kind of protocols where if the dose isn't above 200, where they don't have to take an AI, you don't have to manage estrogen. Now, some of them do, which poses a whole different discussion. You can never really make the broad brush statement that like at a certain dose of testosterone, a certain category of dosing of testosterone, i.e. TRT or sports TRT, that either one of those does or doesn't necessitate the use of aromatase inhibition or estrogen control. Because people are different. There are some people that down at low doses of test, like 125, 130, with no abnormalities in their liver function or insulin sensitivity and otherwise, they need to reduce the estrogen just a little bit. The thing that people need to understand, and this is a statement I've made one other time that I think I would hope hits home for folks, your body isn't a fucking magician at creating the perfect ratios of DHT to estradiol in relation to exogenous test. It's much better at doing that with your endogenous test. When you inject exogenous testosterone into your body, there's a whole different set of variables now with different kinetics than your normal testosterone that you secrete from the testicles, and these pulses from LH. It's just different. So in this context, if it doesn't act like a literal magician and create the perfect ratios, you're going to have to manage those ratios. Like a TRT, now that you're injecting testosterone into your body, you're not leaving it up to your body. Your body's going to do what the body was meant to do. It's almost like garbage in, garbage out. You inject 250 tests, 300 tests, you're just going to aromatize accordingly until, of course, the saturation point hits. The guys that recently attacked me on on my character, my education, on all this stuff, one of the points they made was estrogen saturation. Well, yeah, this principle is true. Most of us worth their weight in salt have come to learn this. But that doesn't mean, okay, so person reaches their saturation point of estradiol. First of all, at that point, usually they've got erectile or libido dysfunction. But at that point, okay, so we balance out the ratios. How? We won't really get a whole lot more aromatization, so we'll just increase the test into oblivion. It doesn't make sense. We'll just raise the test dose to what, 400? You're still sitting at 90 or 120 picograms per milliliter of estradiol. It's a problem. Actually, too, what doesn't make sense about that idea is I've seen people at 170. I literally just looked at 170 picograms per milliliter of estradiol Tuesday. Thought estrogen was supposed to reach a saturation point at which you're not going to convert anymore. 170 picograms per milliliter? Not sure it works that way. Not sure it works exactly that way. Again, real physiology is much more complex than that. But yes, in these cases, peaking high and then dropping back down allows for some people to not manage estrogen. Milo, I once crashed my estrogen with aromasin, and it took months and months to recover. Well, the estradiol itself coming back up should not have taken months. This is probably not what actually happened on the blood work, but yeah, you certainly may have induced some tissue level reduction of estradiol, which had ongoing side effects. There are certainly people that report taking AIs in taking too much of any estrogen blocking compound, and then having problems for about a month or so, and those problems predominantly being injuries that they induced via very low estrogen at the tissues, right? Weakening their joints and weakening some of their strength. So that can absolutely happen. But at the same time, I like Aromacin, but I don't like it for this reason. You know, it's a suicidal aromatase inhibitor. So you don't just bind to the heme iron of the aromatase enzyme, which is, I'm quite sure, what anastrozole is doing. You kill the aromatase enzyme permanently. And then your body's got to go through a process of making new aromatase enzymes to replace it. So that's why people always say, dose Aromacin real carefully. Because if your dose is wrong, it's going to take you a while to get back. Take you a while to recover, but it shouldn't take this long. Yeah, you can either use injectable estradiol at that point or increase HCG. You could use D-bol to do that as well, but it's a less intelligent strategy. So this is not common for months and months to happen, but you know, Aromacin is also one of those drugs where you've got to be really careful about the dose you're taking. Listen, dosing AIs, this is why there's so much controversy. And why I think a lot of people that have moved to the proestrogen camp are where they are, because they've tried and they've given up. I've tried and they've given up. You'll actually hear all of them report that. It's because they're hard drugs to dose. Doesn't mean it can't be figured out. You know, I think most of the advice out there regarding the use of aromatase inhibitors is just fucking wrong. And that's one of the reasons people fail at it, because they're dosing every 3.5 days or every 5 days. Minimally every 5th day. Okay. You're looking at every 7 to 14 days. Sometimes even longer. A lot of guys will just no schedule on the aromatase inhibitor. That's the way to fuck yourself up. When erections and libido start failing due to high estradiol, and you need to be able to discern the difference, then run it. And that might be once every 20 days. You know, when these things happen, last time I ran this 0.25 of Arimidex was 27 days ago. All the symptoms that happened when I had to run it last time, which fixed it for 27 days, are here. Run another 0.25 milligrams of Arimidex. Hopefully you won't have to take for another month. This is the kind of shit that truly happens. Because think about what you do, right? You then lower the estradiol from 76 to 35. And then from 35 to 55, as it's moving up, everything's great. You get over that threshold, the serum, yes, that matters, but at the tissue level where you're constantly exposed to the estradiol, changes happen in penile vascular tone, among also many other complicated elements of physiology over time. You stop that insult, things get better. I'm on 5 clicks, 100 milligram cream, and 100 IU HCG daily. Okay, not a bad protocol. Blood test after 3 to 4 hours, the total test was 1900 E245. Great overall sexual function, amazing, but lacking a little bit of anabolism. This is great, right? Because that 45 estradiol that you have, you're able to support 2,000 total tests with that. You know, that's one of the good things about estradiol is that, you know, like when I'm sitting at, well, I was at 4,000 total tests. I couldn't have estrogen at 20. I felt fucking terrible, and my sexual function was terrible. So I needed to be in that 30 to 45 range, and it was much better. So this is wonderful, but this is one of the reasons, this is actually the reason that I moved from dosing test cream back to testosterone cypionate. And boy, am I having a great fucking time. Boy, am I having a great, I'll show you guys some actual physique pictures, you know, once I'm truly proud of it and I've reduced all my winter lard, because I certainly put on a little bit of winter lard as I do every winter, but I am looking great and feeling good, and I feel strong, and my physique is transforming already on 250 tests. So it's pretty wonderful. 5 clicks of cream, you know, this is the thing. You don't have as much androgen receptor, consistent androgen receptor activation. You have less nitrogen retention, presumably with fast-acting esters or modalities of test. And so you're just not going to be as anabolic. You'll have less muscle protein synthesis consistently throughout a 24-hour period, especially considering you trough a lot. You know, that 1900, I wonder what that is at trough, right? In these kind of situations, 700. 2 days ago, I just saw, was it 2200 peak, 747 trough with cream. This is all within a 24-hour time frame. Those swings, first of all, is why a lot of people have acne on cream. But secondarily, this is precisely why your anabolism is not great. it's not great. Whereas with me on 250 tests, I'm peaking at about 1700 and troughing about 1200. So I never go below a certain threshold. So I'm anabolic as fuck, man. My gym sessions are good. By the way, I just want to say I moved from Planet Fitness to LA Fitness because I feel like I wasn't making progress on my chest. And that's because there's only like 2-3 machines. Like there's like 2 Smith machines. One's good at Planet Fitness, Smith Fly. The other one pretty much sucks, just a regular chest press. And then there's the benches. And you could use dumbbells, do incline press, and all that shit. I just went to LA and signed up like two weeks ago. Dude, my chest is already transforming again. Now, I'm on more tests, so that's a part of it. But there are 2 rows of 8 machines each, well, all chest machines. Hammer press. There's a fucking incline Smith incline machine. Hammer press. Oh, I already said that. 3 different types of flies, 3 different types of chest presses. I'm like a kid in a candy store over there, bro. I fucking love it. But you're not going to get the anabolism you want when you're troughing so low. Can you touch on low estrogen symptoms, please? Yeah, the most primary symptom of estrogen being too low is a loss of libido. And if it goes too low, that loss of libido translates into loss of erectile quality too. And that's why estrogen is so tricky, because too high, inhibition of nitric oxide, inhibition of libido. Too low, likely inhibition of nitric oxide as well. It's like coffee. Coffee's wonderful. You take too fucking much of it, you're going to have side effects. You drink too little of it, you won't have the adenosine receptor blocking effects, which effectively aim to not give you more energy, but block tiredness. Sweet spot's where it's at. Same thing is true with estradiol. The joints hurt, like, your elbows hurt, like shit hurts. When I took estrogen too low with overshooting aromasin and my last run at sports TRT before I'd actually found the dose that worked, right in the elbows, like right down here it would hurt. My shoulders up here, kind of where, the bones meet muscle. I'm not an expert in shoulder fucking anatomy, so excuse me there. It hurt. The stuff hurt. So that's one of the things, loss of libido, sometimes ED, profound joint pain, and a good degree of the happiness leaves your body, which is so profound, man. This is why this stuff is so interesting, because the same kind of stuff happens when estrogen goes up, minus the joint pain. Loss of libido, loss of erectile quality, loss of happiness, doomy and gloomy mood. It's about the sweet spot with estrogen. It truly is. The guys that attacked me, Andrew Winge and Keith Nichols, part of their discussion there was saying, hey, sometimes there's long stretches where their libidos suck, they're just not great. And then it comes back, et cetera. Well, you don't have to have that, right? There's an imbalance in sex hormones and neurotransmitter function at that time, which is causing that. They almost demean the idea that you can have high level libido a good degree of the time on TRT. Because if we shouldn't try to shoot for that, or that's not possible, it's fucking completely possible. It's totally possible. Up until probably the last 4 or 5 days, where now on 250, I can sense, I'm going to go back this up with blood, but I know the estrogen is going to be high, where estrogen has gotten a little bit too high for me at this stage. I'll be dosing some Arimidex very soon. But up until that, for the entire 2 months of dosing 250 once a week, my libido's been fucking sky high. Are there maybe points throughout the day where I might not be thinking about sex, where it's not particularly high or something? Well, yeah, but disproportionately it's high. Ask Jill. I don't think there's been a night in the last at least 30 days. There's been a single night where I haven't wanted to, go to town, brother. I screwed up my blood work. Made a mistake with daily dose the prior day. And this isn't because I'm 42, by the way. It's because my fucking hormones are straight. That's what I'm trying to tell people. With my daily dose the prior day, took maybe 120 a test prop. Okay. Yeah, 2,500 nanograms per deciliter. That'll happen. ET was 129. Felt great. Want to change from daily? Okay. Wait a minute. So you messed up your blood work, though? Okay, E2 was 129. That was your peak. Yeah, 2,500, 129. I guess those aromatase enzymes didn't saturate, did they? Just kept going up. All right. I don't know what you're asking here, Bob. I don't know what you're asking, man. How would you go about switching from high dose TRT from SIP there? How would you go about switching to high dose TRT with Sipinate from where? From your 5 clicks. Remember to include the context always, because I can't always go back and read if there's a bunch of questions in between. I would front load 150 milligrams twice. I would do that once, and then I would do it again 3 days later. So you get 300 milligrams in your system within a 3-day period, which, if you plot it out on steroidplotter.com, should eventually land you at a pretty substantial peak, at which point then I would add another layer or add another compound on Steroid Plotter of your new dose and frequency to try to gauge exactly when you'll be closest to steady state so that you don't have to wait 6 weeks to at least get your levels up. Because if you don't front load, you will probably have some degree of feelings of lack of energy as your testosterone is used to peaking high and then going back low with the cream. And now you're going to go like this. For the first week or two, you're probably going to feel like shit. So I would front load as I described, use Steroid Plotter accordingly. Why does it always do this? Hey, Ryan and everyone. What's up, David Truths? What's up, brother? How are you, man? Audacity. Do more frequent injections actually lower E2 or to just keep E2 consistently high than less frequent injections? This is a question which is based on another large-scale misconception. More frequent injections don't necessarily lower estradiol. Listen, man. People have to think about the kinetics of this before they give advice or think they understand how this works. If you inject a 200 milligram dose of Cypionate once every 7 days, on day 4, day 5, day 6, your estrogen is going to be going like this because the test is going like this. And you stop converting to some large extent test to estradiol. So in that period with the same dose of, call it 150, if you're doing the daily injections, was that 21 milligrams, 22 milligrams a day or something? First of all, the estrogen at trough on your larger injection might actually be lower than it is at steady state on your 150 daily. I've seen this more often than not. Why is that? Well, because, I mean, if you have constant substrate for aromatization around 19.7 or 24.7, you're making estrogen 19.7 or 24.7, whereas if you trough, you're making less estrogen for some part of that effect duration window. This is not rocket science, people. So in some cases, frequent injections increase people's estradiol higher than they would be on infrequent injections. You can also corroborate this with anecdotals on Reddit. But I get to see this from the position of a coach, so I've seen it over the years. All frequent injections do regarding estradiol is prevent the peaks that you might get if you do every 7 days. If you do every 7 days of 150, that estrogen might actually peak higher than where it would be steady on the same dose of daily injections, but then it's going to trough lower, whereas on the daily injections, it's actually going to stay the same. And that difference between the two, higher versus the other, is not even that substantial. It's not even that substantial. Yeah. The only, I mean, there are many reasons why people might want to do daily injections. Again, it does work for some people, allegedly. But a good degree of the reasons have to do with side effects on higher doses. And those are the kinds of things that you can get used to over time, or you can modulate your body to not have those side effects. You know, like acne is one of them. You know, I inject 250 milligrams every 7 days. Dude, I have fucking no acne. I'm clear, dude. You should see my back, the top of my shoulders. There's nothing there. There's nothing. Whereas like earlier in my time on TRT, I had a good degree of acne. Sometimes shit just takes time to get over. Looks like Hunter Farm went down. There might be several fake sites. Yeah, he's been off of the SL for a long time. But no, I have no idea about Hunter. We shouldn't be talking about sources here. Please don't do that again. I'll have to ban you if you do. It's not something that we want to comply with YouTube's policies. Order 66 brother. I just love how it says brother. So I watched Keith's 4-hour testosterone video. It's okay. But we all have access to the same studies that followed the high estrogen crowd for years, and all I got was acne, anxiety, and ED. Yeah, that's another thing about estradiol. You know, when I had made that comment about like how people don't recognize that they're having side effects until they control the estrogen, and they're like, "Holy shit, dude, I feel so much better." But I didn't even realize I was like an anxious mess prior. Anxiety is one of them. Yeah, and it's not tests. People attribute their insomnia or the anxiety on testosterone to testosterone. Let me be clear. Testosterone being high doesn't cause side effects like that, typically. Estradiol, though, does. Again, I'll always go back to my observations and witnessing women try to dial in on HRT and the profoundly fucking terrible situation that is to look at. When that estrogen gets too high, it starts messing with their psyche. That's fucking terrible. It's terrible. I've been here before too, where, you know, too high estrogen, taking high doses of test, of course. Yeah, I ran the AI, and then like within hours, I'm like, oh fuck, I feel fucking normal again. Thank God. Holy shit. Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that can happen. Regarding Keith's lecture, you know, I've sufficiently discussed this on the response video from their attack piece on me. Again, it's been hard to just deal with the reality that somebody that I've followed and liked, even though I disagree with some of the stuff he does, Dr. Winch seems to have such negative feelings about me. It's been a little difficult, but where I was going with that. Oh yeah, the lecture. We applaud Keith for trying to do something scientific and all that, but yeah, again, serotonin is not the cause of sexual dysfunction on TRT. And I've proven that wrong years ago. If you block serotonin receptors, you'll prove that wrong as well. But one of the weird things about that assertion is still a little bit taking the responsibility off of estradiol and putting it on serotonin, but not estradiol. So let's just assume he's right. From everything that I can see, he's not right about that. But let's just assume in some other universe that he is right. Why still say serotonin's the cause and not estradiol? Let me give you an example to clear this up. If estrogen blocked arterial inflow to the penis, and that gave you ED from elevated estrogen, would you then say the cause of that ED is not estrogen, but rather the base of your penis? Of course not. It's estrogen that's causing the fucking problem. So there's just so many things wrong with it, and I think that example should be an example that people hold really tightly in their head about that. Say he's right. He's not. Right, but say he's right about the serotonin theory. Why would you blame what estrogen does downstream as the problem? Estrogen is the problem. Yeah. Just use the penile base example. Super Sam. Hey Ryan, just want to thank you for all the help you've given to people, including myself. I've been following you from Europe. Across the puddle, brother. Nice to see you here, brother. Specifically Hungary. And I recommend your channel to everyone here. Well, I appreciate that, man. That actually means a fucking lot to me, dude. That means that your effort is probably bringing people to my channel, which is significant, bro. I appreciate that a lot. I won't let them get to me. The only thing that bothered me about, dude, Keith's been on my ass for fucking at least the last year and a half or 2 years. So that's just kind of common with that guy. And there's been some really weird behind the scenes things that have happened too. Which I won't publicly discuss, but that we're pretty sure came from certainly that ilk and possibly even him. The thing that bothered me the most was man medicine. You know, it's like I just didn't expect. I hadn't really come to understand his character that much, but I definitely didn't expect him to be as aggravated with me as he was, you know. Whatever, you know, I mean, I guess it is what it is, but I did enjoy some of his work up until that, and I do still enjoy some of the stuff that I saw that I liked about what he might have said. But I listen. The bottom line is everybody needs to take a fucking humble pill every now and then. You know, everybody needs that now and then. You get on the web, you start talking trash about an individual. I mean, these guys, the response, first of all, from you people in response to all that was overwhelmingly heartwarming for me. And, you know, the negative response to them from you guys and people in the middle that weren't my fans or their fans, you know, was substantial. So every now and then, you know, if you're going down a certain path, i.e. the path of trash talking people publicly and trying to disparage them and fuck with their reputation and all this stuff, and you get corrected, good for you. I mean, good for you. Good for you. I think to myself, like some of these people that just do constant hit pieces on people all the time, and there are many YouTubers out there that have made effectively a career doing that, like Greg Doucette, among others. I like Greg. I'm not talking shit, but I couldn't do that. I wouldn't feel good about myself going to sleep at night, just constantly fucking badgering people. Okay, you don't agree with people, or maybe you think you're right. Find another way than badgering them publicly, you know? Just do your content about the things you think you're right about and let people decide if you are or not. It makes me feel like an absolute fucking dickhead to badger other people. I hope now these folks have that gene, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I tried everyday injections and it felt like I had zero testosterone despite overall weekly dose being 200. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty common. Switched to once per week and felt like $1 million. Yeah, I guess I'm just making shit up though over here, right? Yeah, it's just, again, the simple concept of the androgenic threshold and more testosterone at once. And if you try to visualize, I think one of the disconnects between me and perhaps folks that may be less accurate on all this is visualization. Like, I try to visualize what a micro oil depot looks like, and then based on my understanding of the metabolism of testosterone in a subcutaneous depot or a small intramuscular depot, I try to visualize that process, look at it in my head versus a large oil depot, and then cross-referencing that with some of the studies that have actually been done on this, which Vigorous Steve has covered, like how it disperses over a period of time. There's studies on that. And Vigorous Steve did a wonderful fucking service for the TRT community by looking at that. And therefore, there's a major difference between that small oil droplet and that bigger depot, specifically in terms of how much testosterone you get over a short period of time, how much gets metabolized to be used, and therefore how much objectively your total testosterone numbers and therefore the rest of the hormones are going to rise. And if we need a certain threshold of test to feel our best, to have the anabolism we'd like, and specifically to have erections that work very well, assuming that estrogen's in your range, the micro droplets are never going to... Dude, I have seen this 200 milligrams a week. You know, it's 27 milligrams a day. The most common one is 210 a week at 30 milligrams a day because it's even. These guys don't have erections or libido. Same dose injected once a week. They have erections and libido. I mean, this is not rocket science. Megatron Nebo, but thank you for your comment on that, bro. On 12 milligrams TSC and 125 IU, IgG daily, my TT was 740. Am I likely an overresponder, or is it more likely doses just overlap and stack with no trough? I don't think you're an overresponder. I think that seems about right. On 12 of TSC, with that HCG, I would be about 550 total test, and estradiol would be profoundly low, between 10 and 15. So, overresponder, no. Not really, but I think a lot of people would be a lot lower there. Big Z Baller. Going to try giving 200 milligrams a full 10 days until I inject again once a week. Due to my feeling libido rise on day 6, 7 after injection, I want to do at least 500 IU of HCG a week. Thoughts? I would reduce that HCG unless you're concerned with fertility. all it's going to do is muck up your ability to get your ratios correct via increasing estrogen. So I'd be very careful about that because, estrogen being out of whack with your DHT is the number one cause of sexual dysfunction on TRT. That is just true. So you got to be careful about that. Sounds to me like you're pretty conscious of fertility and stuff. So, to each their own and good luck. But if your libido is rising on day 6 to 7, it is much more likely that that's because estradiol went down. In other words, I bet you could, with a 200 milligram once a week injection, if you get the estrogen in the right place, you could have libido either throughout or for most days, and not it just happens, for a small little window on day 6 and day 7. Yeah. But your libido rose on day 6, day 7. You know what's happening on day 6, day 7? You've started troughing on testosterone, but estradiol is going like this. It's going like this. This might be an opportune time for you to explore what it's like to have lower estrogen and higher androgens. Yeah, in the right ranges though. Too little estrogen, you have fucking problems. In the right place with high androgens. So this is where you get that, the kind of libido where you're sitting in your car and you're seeing women and you're just like, God, what the fuck? Your shit's going crazy, man. Your shit's going crazy. I'm telling you, it happens all the time. And in cases where men think they're never going to really have that libido, guess it's because I'm 45. Guess I'm 45, so like my libido circuits in my brain have somehow deteriorated, even though that's not scientifically like fucking proven anywhere or valid or. No, it's not. It's your hormones. Your hormones, dude. They drive all that. So I would experiment with lower-ish estrogen, but not crashed at high androgens and see how you fare. But you're on the right track with at least 200 milligrams at once. Chris Garassi, add a dose of 260 milligrams of what test? To 300 milligrams per week of testosterone. Wait a minute. Add a dose of what? 260 mastron? 260 to 300 a week. What do you think a comfortable range would be for my estradiol? Well, okay, add a dose maybe. AT. 260 to 300, you're going to aromatize to, at the very lowest, 50 picograms per milliliter, but probably up to 85, 90 picograms per milliliter at 300. Yeah, that's pretty common at those doses. At lowest 50, highest of 100 picograms per milliliter is likely where you're going to go there. Yeah. Where estrogen should probably be up there when you're at 260 to 300 is like 45. 30 to 45, and I bet you have the best sexual function of your life. Yeah. And, try it. But make sure you get it there without crashing it, and then come back and say, hey, Ryan, you were right. Now my libido that I never actually had, like really strong visceral libido on TRT, is back. I'm sensitive as hell. I'm sitting outside Wawa and I got a random erection. This is the kind of stuff I see, man. Taurus Universe, watch the 4-hour documentary. The reality is that high estrogen equals water retention, high anxiety, erectile dysfunction, acne, gyno, and stable mood. Yeah, among other things. Among other things. Did you mention blood pressure here? I mean, just the blood pressure problem alone with elevated estradiol is something to look at. There's also a lot of subjective things too. Men tend to be on elevated estradiol a lot more feminine. They just have a feminine demeanor about them. And you can tell that it's that. Like, it's just, sometimes I wonder about some of the individuals that I see out in the wild that I can tell they're obviously hetero, but the way they talk reflects that they're not, or seems like they're not, but they are. These guys just have elevated fucking estradiol. I mean, some of these guys are talking like girls these days. You guys know that, right? What is that? But yeah, I mean, there's just all manner of things that go wrong. When the estrogen milieu is too high for that individual, according to Dr. Andrew Winge, there seem to be, at least people that tolerate that. Although I don't know what his mood is like from day to day, right? If I could experiment on him, I bet, first of all, I could cure the intermittent bad libido. And I bet once he got in the right place with estradiol, I'm sure he's been there intermittently, maybe didn't learn how to stay there. Maybe ideologically doesn't want to. Who knows? But things would generally be better. Yeah, the puffiness, sometimes that doesn't fully go away if you have consistently elevated estradiol. And the moment you lower it, you've got less antidiuretic hormone, and you can clear some water. That's generally a good thing. You don't want to be retaining water to some excessive level. This is unhealthy. I think this, if you're looking at TRT people to watch, you should watch everybody and take what they've got to say, and find a good middle ground. Find a good middle ground of them all. Like if you're going to watch the pro-estrogen guys, you should also watch Rand McClain, because they're on completely two sides of the spectrum. I'm really not on the extreme manage estrogen for everybody, keep it between 18 and 25 picograms per milliliter like Doc McClain is spectrum. I'm much more leaning toward that side of Doc McClain, and I think that guy is one of the smartest fucking TRT guys that in our time. But I'm not quite down there. You should watch everyone. You should experiment for yourself. You should be dogmatic on nothing except for what works. That's where you're going to get the best results. What works. I'm perfectly willing to accept that there are some individuals that can sit at pretty elevated estradiol and still have erections. It's just not the majority. Like, I'd be lying if I said, if I didn't operate from what I see in coaching, I'd be doing everybody a disservice. People do better generally on lower-ish estradiol with higher androgens. It's just the truth. But the literature backs this up as well, which is why it's not rocket science. If you were using testosterone N-state instead of my current protocol of 250 of cypionate once every 7 days, what dose would you use? I would use 250, but I would do it every 5 to 6 days. That's what I would do. Yeah. It'd be essentially the same thing or pretty similar. And I would pay no mind to what that total weekly dose ends up being, because it's going to look really scary considering the half-life of N-enthate and N-enthate drugs. 5th day, it's starting to go downward. Did I find a lot of my clients were able to tolerate 100 IU of daily HCG with 70 test sip every 4th day? Yeah, you don't need that much, is what I have come to learn, especially in the last 6 months. That's one of my positions that has changed, that people need a lot less HCG than they think to keep testicular size specifically. But I think that's reasonable as long as your estrogen doesn't get too out of whack with that androgen load. If it does, just lower the HCG total amount per week. Shit, I've lost the chat. Okay, there we go. Sweet, we're back. We're back in action, otherwise known as Baction. Haha. Fighting girl Irish. Fighting Irish. I've been injecting 250 N-enthate every 7 days. Would you say 180 every 5 days is better for N-enthate? And when is it best to put HCG with once a week? And when is best to put HCG? I don't know that. I don't understand how, because based on how you phrase that last question, so I can't really answer that. I don't know what's happening on your 250 every 7 days. That's a hefty dose. So every 7 days is totally fine for that. It's just, if you're dosing 200 or 170, in one injection, I would do that every 5th day on N-enthate rather than every 7 days. But that's a lot of testosterone, so your trough is probably not significant. GB Chirk, I went from E2 level of 59 to 27 in literally 1 month. In that 1 month, I added Primo, so I guess I responded to it. Is it normal E2 can drop that fast? Absolutely. It can drop a lot quicker than that. It can drop a lot quicker than that. Remember, you clear estradiol from your body pretty consistently. It's one of the things that you do. And so if you cease aromatization or block it to some extent, and you're also clearing estrogen from the body, which you normally do, this serum's going to go down a lot. It can go down really quickly. So yeah, this is very normal. I had serious joint pain on my shoulders at 27 estradiol. It wasn't the number. It was likely the local inhibition of aromatase at tissues via your primobolan in this case. That's why AIs have to be dosed carefully. It is lowering your estrogen to 20 with an AI is not the same as lowering it naturally. Your body tends to naturally balance out the tissue level distribution, in my opinion, based on understanding the literature and trying to visualize what might happen here, better than when you block aromatase enzymes. I think it gets a little mucked up there. Doesn't mean AIs are bad and you can absolutely make them fucking work, but where AIs really fuck you up is when you take the E2 too low. Like when the estrogen is just going down low, that's when shit like this can happen. That's when crap like that can happen, man. Been taking 25 milligrams test prop a day. Want to get higher peaks with 70 every other day or 100 every 3 days. 100 every 3 days would be better, in my opinion. Yeah. You know, you're gonna have to monitor sexual function. You might have to manage the estrogen a little bit there, but yeah, it's generally better. I found the video where they tried to elevate themselves. Totally tasteless. Dominance techniques. You might be referring to this recent video that Nichols and what's his name did on me. Yeah, we moved on from that. We've moved on. But listen, I mean, I'll always defend myself. There's points at which I might be named or someone might say something where I'm like, do I really need to address that? And then there's points at which, you know, I don't want to be combative with anybody, but, you know, if you're going to disrespect me live on air, it's going to be seen by a lot of people. And especially if you're going to say negative things about me that aren't true. And if those things have the ability to really mess with my life or my business, 100% of the time the gloves are coming off. That goes for anybody out there. I do not want fucking problems with anybody. I am in my own lane trying to do my own thing. You know, you're out in the wild in the woods and there's a fucking wolf pack out there. You think the alpha wants to fuck with you? You think he wants to fight you? He has shit to do. You know, he's got to collect stuff for the pack. He's got to make sure everybody's safe. He's got to protect everybody from other invaders. He wants nothing to do with you. You know, but if you get too close to him and you cross his fucking path, he's going to eat your face off. So be careful. Be careful. Total T is around 1,000 to 1,200. E2 39 to 49, 32 to 49. Well, your HCG dose is pretty high here. 250 IU. What is this? Every 4 days? That's probably why the E2 is up there. Improving sensitivity and erectional libido are good. Well, in that particular case, man, at 1,200 total T, listen, I did all right at estradiol at 42 there. I did all right, but it was fucking borderline. Any higher than that, I think there would have been problems. You are taking Primo, which is blocking aromatase activity, and even the serum looks okay. You could have some uneven distribution of estrogen to the tissues, which is maybe causing your sensitivity loss. So that's one thing to look into there. But yeah, I mean, generally it shouldn't happen on estrogen blocking stuff where, you know, if it's the right dose and you're getting in the right range, sensitivity problems shouldn't be happening. They shouldn't be happening. Somehow you've got to figure out how your protocol is maybe inhibiting dopamine a little bit, because dopamine drives sensation a lot. You know, in my research and my understanding of at least my current model of it, dopamine translates tactile touch to pleasurable sensation in the brain, i.e. sensation. So somehow dopamine might be getting somewhat inhibited here, and I'm not quite sure which is doing it. You know, at 49 picograms per milliliter, I would argue that the estradiol is doing that. At 32, it really shouldn't be, and you might need to look into something else here. At the same time, I don't. Have you proven that 1,000 to 1,200 is an adequate androgen threshold for sensation? Sometimes it needs to be higher for that. Sometimes it might need to be higher. Might need to be a little up there while still controlling estrogen. I would wager you're just not in the right ratios. Because here's what fucking happens when you're not in the right ratios. Not only erectile dysfunction, libido dysfunction, sensation dysfunction, climax dysfunction. You know, you got to focus during sex to make it happen, and then you can't. You lose the connection to your libido right during sex. This is a ratio problem. Make no mistake, this is a ratio problem. It's a metabolite problem, right? I think more accurately, it's a metabolite problem. You've got to figure out where the estradiol needs to be, and maybe not identify a number, but identify a protocol that keeps it there. Then you'll be good. Steve Parsons went to 180 milligrams once a week and 0.125 Arimidex 2 days later, trying everything else after watching your videos. 3 weeks later, doing great. Attables was through the roof and feeling great again. And this makes me so fucking happy, dude. Listen, do we want to be taking estrogen blocking drugs? Not really. I mean, you know, not really. But some people, there's no choice. I know these other guys try to give every other strategy, every which way under the sun that you don't have to do it. Listen, I am very comfortable making this statement based on years of observation now. Some people need to take estrogen-controlled drugs on TRT. I'm very comfortable with that statement. I'm very, very comfortable with that statement. They just do. And there isn't anything that they can do, by the way, to modulate their physiology to create a different scenario in which they don't need to control estrogen. You know, some of them are on the lower doses already. They still need to control estrogen. These guys, no liver dysfunction, no insulin dysfunction, no otherwise dysfunction. Fucking lean as hell. They still need to control it. You know? Can I tell you why? No, not really. I don't know. But it just is the case. And this is just beautiful to see. As I've said, and I've been doing content like this for years, I just kind of circle back and try to say it differently each time I'll do that video on this topic. But some of the best people having the best times on TRT are dosing high with an AI. And it's just true. I am glad you're feeling fucking good. And I hope the advice to do this came from us. Or someone else who's seen enough to know that they can't be blanket statementy about this shit. Typically, from what you've seen, when an average in-shape person injects 50 milligrams every other day, do they typically need estrogen control? A good degree of the time, yeah. Yeah. It's 175 a week. Some people don't need it. It depends. You're gonna land right around 37 to 55 picograms per milliliter of estradiol doing that. Now, I don't know if you're dosing HCG, so that does influence this. But typically, yeah. Anything above 150, people typically do, you know, or should modulate the estradiol a little bit. They can get away with it. I mean, people could be sitting at 55 estradiol, and their erections do work for sex, and the libido's okay. And maybe that's fine with them. I mean, that's just not many people are up there like that, but maybe that's fine with them. And they're a little moody, and they have some anxiety, and they're not really particularly as happy as they could be about life and whatever. But they move it down a mere 10 points. Suddenly, their dick works better. It feels like they're on Cialis all the time. Their libido is like when they were young. Their mood stuff that they didn't really attribute to estradiol or think was a problem or just learn to accept resolves. So, you know, some people yes, some people not. This is Dr. Keith Nichols' burner account, by the way. Did you? I don't think this is actually that. Did you even say anything that was counter? I don't think so. I don't know if you're joking, but I don't think so. I don't see average person inject 50 milligrams every other day. Oh, if it is you, Keith, I hope you watched the fucking video, dude. Regardless, Keith. Oh, Keith gets that he was very wrong about my education and my history, and this is the reason you've got to do your diligence about people, man. You really got to do your diligence about people. If I seem so extravagantly fucking unorthodox, it might be for a reason, man. You should probably figure out who I am, where I've been, what I've done. You know, guy called me a high school dropout. You know, meanwhile, during that time, I was leading people in war. It's just mindless. Crypto Magic. Sup, bro? Previous SSRI use. It is likely I need a higher dose of testosterone because of this. Currently on testing 100 milligrams every 5th day. No morning wood, no randoms, no nocturnals, and a threshold issue. Potentially. Yeah, here's the bottom line. Even if you don't control estrogen and estrogen goes a little too high, when you make a move to a dose that does cross your androgen threshold, you're going to have nocturnal erections for the first 2 weeks there. Then estrogen is going to catch up and you're going to lose them. But at least you've identified then 150 every 5th day, is your androgenic threshold, or 200 every 5th day in the case of testosterone intake. Might be better than you reach your androgenic threshold. So, yeah. At the same time, maybe you've already reached it because you're somewhat of a hyper responder to test. And the reason you don't have nocturnal is because estrogen's too high. That's just it. Estrogen's too high. It's somehow, in some sense, blocking the action of androgens at the tissue level, at the penile tissue level, because that's one of the things that I believe, based on my investigation of all this over the years, happens, that estrogen actually not only has its own anti-erectile effects, but interferes with androgen's action at the erectile tissue. So that could be the case, here. It could be either one of them, if I were you, I'd go get bloods. Where is estradiol? If it's sitting 45, 55, probably that's the issue. If your test goes substantially higher on 100 milligrams every 5th day, it's probably not enough test. It might just be a little elevated estradiol, but you're going to have to figure that out. So run the estrogen sensitive, see where it is. And if it's pretty high, try lowering it a very little bit and seeing if you get any movement in the erectile quality. You almost definitely will get positive movement in erectile quality generally, but also nocturnal erections. Now, randoms, let's talk about this. Randoms is always an androgen threshold dilemma, and of course an estrogen dilemma, because if you cross your androgen threshold with a lot of tests, you crossed it. That's really where you're capable of getting randoms, but with estradiol being out of your physiologic sweet spot for sexual function and for random erections in this case, you won't get them. Yeah, this is one of the things that remember. When I had run sports TRT for the first time 2 years ago, and I'd finally got my aromasin dose right, I hadn't had random erections that whole time on sports TRT, even though I was on 300 milligrams a test, and I'm coming from that cycle. But when I got the aromasin dose right, I did. So I remember specifically being outside of a fucking grocery store, and it just had a random erection. I'm like, fuck, I got to do the old taco. I can't go in here. I can't go in this goddamn store. I had shorts on from the gym. I'm not going in there. I'm not going to the fucking store. Because it was an androgen threshold. I had 300 milligrams of test at that point, but I'd also controlled estrogen to the point where it was right where it needed to be for me to have these kinds of things. Randoms, I wouldn't judge, okay, I'm dialed in or not dialed in based on random erections, but you can get them. Think of TRT and dialing in as a spectrum. Over here, pretty good libido, erections passable for sex. Over here, better libido, erections pretty goddamn great for sex. Over here, nocturnals that are rigid as fuck, erections for sex like I'm on 20 milligrams Cialis, libido raging. There's actually another level to that. Over here, randoms throughout the day, almost excessively high libido. I don't really like to operate quite there, although it's fun. Yeah, there's different levels of this shit, man, and randoms are part of what is usually the most tuned in hormone ratio and numbers. Yeah, you can get it. This is why when folks say, well, it's okay to accept that your libido might not be high all the time and there might be 14-day stretches in which it's low. On that spectrum, they're over here. They can be over here where it's high pretty much the whole 14 days or ongoingly. It's about where they are on the spectrum, man. I live in the details of what allows people to get into each of those zones. And I know what contributes to the bad zones versus the better zones. MMA match between you and those old YouTube docs. We'll see who's more anabolic. Well, I think Andrew does BJJ. So I think he'd probably fucking win. But I don't think either one would win against me at the shooting range, though, accuracy and things, or in Warzone. I'm probably a better gamer than both of them. By spacing my test C doses out, should I be able to tolerate more or I should be able to tolerate more with a trough. Yes, but you're still going to reach a point if you scale that dose up, or you're going to need to control estrogen. Couldn't tolerate 12 milligrams daily, but seemed to tolerate 70 milligrams every fourth day. Why couldn't you tolerate 12 milligrams daily? That's a weird one. But certainly spacing the doses out changes the kinetics and changes your response positively. Absolutely. Absolutely. Warren Prater, dude, I've been listening so much. Sorry for blowing the feed up, but I noticed that my libido was rocking the day before my first injection. 3x times a week, reinforcing it every 3.5 days protocol to try. Yeah, it's one of the reasons that might be happening, and your frequency change might balance that out. There's so many other, and don't worry about it. This is what live streams are for, brother. You can ask as many questions as you'd like, and that's all, man. Yes, yeah. Thank you, brother. I do need me a new case of some ginger ale. I've been eating. I think I might use that to get some new string cheese too, because I've been eating this slightly lower calorie string cheese, and it honestly tastes better than like Sargento. So, sir, I think you just bought me some string cheese, brother. 2 of them. Thanks, man. Appreciate that, man. If I had high E2, 288 picomolars per liter, and after starting premium went down to 28, been feeling funny. That's quite low. I think that's below your reference range over there. Do you find that a man doing 300 milligrams once a week need to control estrogen? Yes, almost definitely. Almost definitely, and almost all the time. Yeah, you have these rare anomalies in the forums. I don't know if I've ever actually seen such a creature, but these rare anomalies in the forums that say they dose 500 tests like they're doing cycles, and they don't control estrogen, and everything's fine. It's pretty rare to find that, so keep that in mind. But yeah, generally speaking, at 300 milligrams a week of test, you're going to need to control estrogen. Yeah. 200, though, that could change things. Yeah, there are people that dosing 200 all day without controlling estrogen. Yeah, but they're doing it usually with less frequent injections and minimal or no HCG. I appreciate you as well, brother. Thank you for the loot. That's going to buy me a Noosa yogurt. Thank you. Fighting Irish, appreciate that, brother. Best day? What best is there? There isn't a best day to do HCG after testosterone. This kind of question, or where you're going toward here, tends to come up when people are taking aromatase inhibitors or dosing primobolan, and you want to balance it where you've got some inhibition of the estrogen conversion, but you also don't want to take it too low, and you want to supply some at the same time to keep a nice even balance, but still some lowering, but not catastrophic lowering, in which case day 3 after an injection, you dose both primo and HCG so that you balance that out. Yeah, but there is no best day for HCG after test. Again, these days I'm much more inclined to say to people that use HCG to the extent that you need to, and nothing more. Nothing more. Test ACE or even TNA. What should go down there to the very fast-acting shit? First of all, I don't have a lot of experience with it. And secondly, I think it becomes a lot less practical. A lot less practical. I couldn't really give an answer on how I'd run DHT. I think I would run DHT the same way I've historically run DHT, which is to counterbalance estradiol on high doses of test to the extent that you're okay with the hair loss that it might create. And then running DHT anethate at low doses of test where you've got a dose low to get estrogen at 27, but your erections are kind of lackluster, so you need a little more DHT. It's one of the ways to fix that situation. Best frequency for prop, enethate, and SIB. Can you please do one on test PP? I have done on phenylpropionate, so you should go watch that. You just search. Once you get to the channel, hit that little magnifying glass looking search function and go and search and find that video that I did on phenylpropionate. I haven't studied it extensively, but enough to at least do some content on it. So please watch that. Yeah. As far as I remember, it's like every third or fourth day or something. I mean, that's effectively the half-life as far as I can remember. You're going to need to go watch the video because it's been probably about a year since I've thought about testosterone phenylpropionate. I wish I could help you a little more, though. All right, boys, I'm going to end the stream. I've got to handle some stuff and then get with Jill, and her and I are going to go try to walk in the city, get some exercise, and then do some dinner. I appreciate your guys' support. I did want to say that those of you that came to my response video on that bizarre video that Nichols and fucking Man Medicine did. Yeah, I took a lot of time to think about it. I don't want to fucking get emotional for one goddamn second in front of you guys, but it means a lot to me. It means a lot to me, and I thought about it and felt very grateful that you guys were there for me and gave your opinions in the conversation, because they're useful and we want them. We want them. Thank you. Thank all of you. That said, tomorrow, Friday, I should be able to pump out some content. Look forward to that. Saturday, I'm going to a wedding, so I will not be able to do a live stream. It's one of the reasons I did this live stream today. So if I do not do content tomorrow, this will depend on a few factors. I will see you boys Monday. Be there or be fucking square. We got a lot to say, a lot more to talk about. It's never ending over here, bro. I hope to see you then. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Sleep good. Don't drink a lot. Eat well. And I'll talk to you the next one. Peace, everybody. Later.